Hi, my name is Cathal. I'm a senior lecturer here at the School of Information Management at Victoria University, and I'm a PI on this project where I bring the online citizen science perspective to the table.
And I'm Cathy Buntting. I work primarily in science education research at the University of Waikato in New Zealand. Today we're going to be sharing a bit about an interdisciplinary project that we co-lead, where we're investigating the use of online citizen science in classrooms. The project is funded by the Ministry of Education's Teaching and Learning Research Initiative in New Zealand. And this particular fund is premised on partnership between researchers and practitioners. The partnership we're going to be exploring today and talking about is the interdisciplinary partnership between teachers, but across disciplines of research. So a little bit about the project. It actually started as an exploratory study in 2018, and the project there focused on how online citizen science might be embedded in primary science classrooms. We've since taken that project and built it into a 3-year research project, which has got 3 interwoven strands of investigation. So the first one is on science capabilities, which is part of the New Zealand focus on science competencies, and it includes things like gathering and interpreting data, using evidence, critiquing evidence, interpreting representation. The second strand of our investigation is in the area of digital technologies and how online citizen science projects might support students' learning outcomes in DT. And then with our computer science colleagues, we're exploring the human-computer interactions that occur and focusing specifically on teacher practices and the impacts of those. And this is our team. We've got 16 people, 7 teachers, 6 researchers, and 3 advisors.
Our team consists of people from a range of disciplinary backgrounds and organisations, and we started off, I suppose, in Victoria University of Wellington in the School of Information Management, where we wanted to understand online citizen science and education. And that's when we realised we'd have to reach out to the School of Education to be able to help us build the project and create connections with different schools and teachers that could be involved. And that's definitely where they came on or helped us an awful lot with it, was they had those connections. And in that initial project, we started off with 4 schools and 4 teachers in those schools, where they then created from the bottom up, really, where we introduced citizen science to them, and they looked at how they can use it and in one of their units. And they then went off and said, well, what citizen science project fits with what I need? And that's how the next set of teachers who joined us as well looked at it as well. They went from a bottom-up approach. It wasn't us trying to say, this is what you should do, but very much, here's the tool, what would you do with it? And then what was really cool with this is they all started reaching out and creating all these little connections around the place as well. One of my favorite ones as well is the teachers who reached out to the people who were running their projects and saying, hey, would you come into the classroom and talk to us about the project you're running at? So that, for example, one of our teachers ended up reaching out to someone in Victoria University here, which brought it back, I suppose, a little bit to Victoria. But then other people were reaching out to teams in England and whatnot and saying, hey, could you come into the classroom? And similar, I know we, with the Science Learning Hub, for example, through our connection at the University of Waikato, gave us our own little landing page about citizen science where we've had 30,000 views. And then inside that project, I suppose we've reached out to different organisations as well. NZCR are involved. As I mentioned a moment ago, the Science Learning Hub are involved. Through the University of Waikato, not only is it the School of Education, but we've also got the Institute of Professional Learning involved with it. So different organisations, from that initial one of School of or Victoria University of Wellington to a lot more. Putting it all together, then you end up with quite a web of connections that are created throughout, and we're very confident that that web is going to continue growing as the weeks and months go by working on this project.
So when you've got a group of people with different expertise, have rich opportunities for shared learning. And to help us think about this from a theoretical perspective, we've started exploring some of the ideas from the literature associated with boundaries. So a boundary is described as a sociocultural difference leading to discontinuity in action or interaction. And here the boundaries that we're interested in and talking about are the boundaries that fall between our different areas of disciplinary expertise. Now, we all get on really well, and we know that we've learned enormously from each other by participating in this shared project. But where are the points where we're talking past each other? Maybe we're talking past each other without even recognising that. This is where concepts around boundary crossing and boundary objects can be helpful. So boundary crossing is the interactions across the different sites, the ability to permeate those boundaries. And the boundary objects, according to the literature, are the artefacts that have a bridging function. And we're starting to wonder, what are the boundary objects that we have in our project? And we're really thinking that it's some of the co-constructed work that we do together. It's around actually framing the research questions and working out what each of us understand from those research questions and what each of us is wanting to achieve from the research questions. Similarly, designing our questionnaires and our surveys and our interview protocols. The protocols become the boundary objects that we are all talking around and unpacking together. We suspect that our observation notes from classrooms are boundary objects, and it's been really, really interesting. Cathal will pick up this point, that we see different things when we're in classrooms together. Perhaps there's some boundary objects around the codes that we use for our analysis and how we code, the importance of co-constructing those codes and then checking our intercoder reliability. And then again, as we come to presenting the findings, the case studies become points of negotiation and points of dialogue that enable us to cross some of the boundaries between our disciplines.
The key strengths that came out, I've hinted at the first one, practice-driven research, which is very much where we kind of provided the tools and just said, what would you do with them? And the teachers really took them and said, well, this is how I would bring them into my classroom. This is how I would go about it. And then we followed that approach. So we very much went with a bottom-up approach. As we can see here from one of our researchers, they really appreciated that. And that leads on to the next one then, the different academic perspectives. So because we have people from information systems, computer science, and education, we all have slightly different views of the world and how we do things. And it's been a great learning experience to see how we even observe in the classroom, the things that we pick up. And I think the researchers have really benefited from that. And then the last one is one of the most important ones, and that's the deeper team learning and the benefiting of students. And one of our teachers points out that they've been able to teach science in a way that they haven't done before, and it really helps the students understand, hey, this is what science is, I'm working on a real project, and hey, I'm also learning about the topic that we're supposed to be learning on. So there are some of the key strengths that were coming through the project.
This is a great project, and we're not even a third of our way into it yet. But to close this presentation, I'd like to share this particular diagram that we actually use quite often in our team meetings. The point being that we're bringing people together with different interests and expertise, but it is in the overlap that you get the magic of the project. Finally, want to acknowledge again the TLRI funding that we have and point you towards the Science Learning Hub, which is where we present a lot of our findings as we go in forms that are accessible for teachers. And we also welcome you to get in touch with us directly.